Hello guys, I have a Google Doc here. So no fancy editing. Not that I do fancy editing anyway, but yes, you were looking at a list today. That's your video footage. It's a video I spent a while working on, and I think there's some alternatives I can make to my list, but this is my preferred one. And I'll talk through basically everything here. But yeah, as the name suggests, it's my idea for the MK12 roster. Basically, it's my idea for this game what I would do if given the premise, which I don't like. I think it's a not a good direction for the franchise. But if we're going off the premise of Liu Kang as the fire god, he started this new timeline. I will be going off of that and making a roster that would be most suitable for that, and I'll give some story ideas. But yeah, I'll explain some specifics in a bit. But as you have, these are the playable characters. We also cameo characters. The cameos, I've gone with 20 because I think it'll be a bit less than the base roster, judging by the fact the combat pack has 5 cameos and not 6, which is weird. Also weird that they're paid DLC because I don't think they'll do much, obviously. But yeah, we go up to 28 characters here. I bumped it up by 3 compared to the typical 25, just for newcomer space, really. But also the roster's got to increase, like some way. Probably not from the base roster, but like more DLC. I don't know. I hope there's not more DLC because MK12's DLC was insanely overpriced. If they just keep doing regular combat packs, it'd probably be fine. But don't do another story expansion that costs more than the combat pack for half the content. Please don't do that. For this, I've just gone with Combat Pack 1, Combat Pack, and Combat Pack 2. I think this game would benefit from finally doing a Combat Pack 3. But I'm just going to go with this. Because I don't want to be, like, ridiculous with the numbers. Like, I would think this is plenty. It covers most of the characters in the franchise, including the cameos. Which, again, I have no basis for what the cameos will be, how many they'll be. But since it's a dedicated roster, I feel there's going to be a decent amount. That's why I went 20 and then an extra 10 through the 2 combat packs, giving us 30 cameos and 40 fully playable characters. It was 37 in MK11. Sure, they can reach the 40 mark. Like it's a bit insane how the rosters hardly increase in size, and the only increase comes from DLC. I think that needs to change. Will we looking to get 25 characters really at this point if we're getting a dedicated roster of cameos? Like, they might, shorten it to 20. I don't know. I really don't have faith for this game. But I have reined it in a bit, trying to be realistic with the figures, the amount of characters to work with. And even then, I think this is going to be more than what we actually get. So yeah, we'll start here. And first one, Scorpion, obligatory reasons. Like, this is not a wish list. This is if I was in charge, if I was handling the roster based on the new premise. Because the premise is important. The story premise is important for determining the roster. I think every single MK roster, and it's good for any fighting game with an important story, of course. I think the roster should always be determined by story. Like MK11, Noob should not have been in the base roster, honestly. He should have been a promised DLC character in Combat Pack, and the DLC just shouldn't have a dedicated story mode, because Aftermath was shit, we all know this. So there's an example, right? Like there's a character that got in just because of popularity, and not much else. Which DLC you can do that. Like Combat Pack 2, it just chucks in Melina and Rain as fan favorites, which I really think we shouldn't have caved into the Twitter stance, but I get it. Even though Melina didn't actually sell that well, because Combat Pack 2, the game is already dead at that point. I would have appreciated if Rambo was in the game. We had Tanya instead for that entire Atenian trio. That would have justified having a Combat Pack of just 3 characters. Like, even MKX had 4 characters. Like that was very unfinished, right? My Combat Pack 2 will have 6 characters total, which is the amount of DLC MK11 had if you combine Aftermath and Combat Pack 2. But yes, Scorpion, obligatory reasons. Sub-Zero, obligatory reasons. But I wanted to spice up with Bihan, because if we're going off to this new timeline, right? And like stuff's going to change, right? My main thing is Liu Kang has things happen naturally, right? Because if he was changing stuff, which is what this game's going to do, because they're changing origins of characters like Melina and whatnot. Even though he goes on about how he wants this like peaceful place where everyone is free of choice, again he comes across as a villain because that's objectively not what he's doing. If you have the hourglass, you've controlled the fates of people. So I think he just lets time happen as normal, but he has a stronger group of protectors that actually stop main threats within time. He stops major events from occurring. So the first one, we'll cover each one when it becomes relevant to a character, I think. Although a lot of villains are absent because of this idea I have. And basically, for Bihan, you can have the clan rivalry, like that can be a thing that naturally happens. But then when you get to the Quan Chi stuff, it kills the clan. Quan Chi, that whole thing, mythologies, it can't happen because Quan Chi was stopped long ago when he went to free Shinnok. So Shinnok has never been freed since his defeat to Raiden originally, during the dinosaur ages. So both of them are imprisoned in Lucifer's palace, his spire, whatever. But yeah, Lucifer is still the ruler of the Netherrealm, and keep in mind, he's a protector god, presumably of the Netherrealm. That's what Deception implied. Like a Shao Kahn was protector god of Outworld. So yeah, that is his role, and it's still his role. Actually, yeah, but because the other villains aren't on this roster idea I have, I'll just explain it. The crypt, my idea for the crypt, because we're going through this exploration thing that has like some lore stuff, you get to play as Lucifer's warden, and he is tasked with or she, I don't know. I have new character ideas because I think every MK game should have new characters. And so I have no specifics for the new car ideas, but for this one, it's just going to be Lucifer's warden. You play as him in the crypt, and you get to meet every villain basically. So Quan Chi, Shinnok, Shang Tsung, Shao Kahn. Onaga is not there because Shao Kahn poisoning Onaga is still an event that occurs. However, as soon as Shao Kahn starts trying to invade realms, he's immediately stopped by this god alliance, and he is brought to Lucifer's dungeons, which, this is an idea I have in my fanfic for how Chinook was in prison anyway, because teleportation and shit. Basically, it's just magic. Magic that makes it so if you're in this proximity, so this dungeon space, you can't use magic, basically. So yeah, that's a very simple explanation, but I think it's an important detail that you'd want to establish in the crypt. Otherwise, you're just going through villains who can quite easily escape prison bars without that context. But yeah, so Anaga's dead, and that can lead to his actual return. Again, I don't think this game should bring Onaga back because it's not the right setting. Although the problem is with Onaga is you try and bring him back, and it's not going to be as good as Deception, because Deception is the perfect conquest storyline that if you don't do that, which they probably won't because they don't care about Shidinko, then it's not going to work, and I'm quite worried about when he inevitably returns. But yes, that's why it's Bihan, because Quan Chi was never there. None of this shit happens. So Bihan's still around. And in addition to that, there's Tundra. and Kuai Liang gets to be Tundra. Now, the thing is, I think Kuai Liang's a much more interesting character than Bihan, just because he has more depth going on. But as of late, and I am not the only one who thinks this, Kuai Liang's character was absolutely ruined in MK11, and he's just really stale. Everyone's tired. The Steve Blum voice is done. Snowblind, he was a fucking weird character. Like, I am so tired of this character, and it's such a shame because that period of Kwai from, let's say, like MK3 to Armageddon, like that period of Midway times, he was such a good character, and they have fumbled him so hard. He's incredibly insignificant in MK9. He becomes a cyborg just because, oh, well, Smoke did, but we got to be different. Not that I want Cyber Smoke, but I think you don't need to have one or the other. You can just have both of them escape. And then MKX, he does fuck all. His chapter is a training lesson with the combat kids, which doesn't feature Frost. Like just a really boring role for him. And MK11, he hates his brother now. On top of all the other shit, like I'm not getting into that. I think it's time to bring Bihan back. Especially when, so, Noob is another character that's been ruined, quite frankly, because his character has just become Bihan but edgier. They don't treat him in MK11 like he's Bihan but corrupted. He is just Bihan. Everyone calls him Bihan. There is not a single example of a character calling him Noob, and I think they realised the name's shit, which, but it's the name, it's the character's name, and I think it's an important name because it distinguishes him from Bihan. It's a different identity. He's a different man. Bihan, like if you play mythologies, of course, he is doing bad stuff, being Lin Kuei assassin and whatnot, but that's all he knows. We know from his own backstory lore. Him and Quan, they've just been raised as Lin Kuei's kids. Their parents are fucking dead by him. They've been killed by him. Right? And I think in this time that could change a bit. Their role can change. Because Oniro, aka Sex's father, the original Lincoln Grandmaster, a very overlooked character, might I add. I think he's very important to the story. And just because he's an NPC, he's been ignored in recent times. I wouldn't even say recent times, just since mythologies he's been ignored. Which is a big shame because he is so crucial to so many Lin Kuei characters. And also Scorpion. Scorpion's revenge is like a whole big thing with his character. Quan Chi was just commissioned. Him getting revenge on Quan Chi, even though all he was doing what Oniro told him to do, that's like getting the guy who was hired by the big bad and then not going after the big bad. And that's just the end of the story. No, that's not how revenge stories work. But in this one, Quan Chi's gone. That whole thing wouldn't happen. And I do have some ideas about Nero and stuff, and I'll get into it with another character on this roster. I have a lot of vague story ideas that you can be flexible about, but when I was thinking about this new era thing, I don't think it's a good idea for the main game story. But I do think there's some very interesting Mortal Kombat alternate universe ideas. I want to shout out the ones that are actually interesting and not just change for the sake of change. Ones that people would be interested in, like Bihan as Sub-Zero. Getting to have that again for a full game. I'm getting to see Tundra. They share the slot because they can just have identical movesets. They can have different intro dialogue because Injustice 2 did this and MK11 just didn't. So that's a shame. And I do have another Premiere skin. Essentially, I think that's what they're called. But I didn't want to go overboard with that because I think people do overestimate how that works. A lot of comparisons I see, they just don't work. The movesets would clash too much. But this and another one, I think you can just have them, give them the identical movesets. In my mind, I think the creative variation system, that whole customization thing from MK11, in my mind, that should carry over. I don't know if it is, but in my mind, that's what's happening. So you could have different moves that you can select and stuff, of course, depending on the character. rather than like the X variations because those would limit you. 11s is good because you can get that variety just from changing a few things, although it becomes more insignificant compared to X. But I do prefer 11 system, and I'm fine with that continuing. Because I don't like the variation system, but I think like 11 where you just select like three special moves, that's fine. If they just figure out like what counts as them, because a lot of them are unbalanced, and like you have the ones that are two slots and they shouldn't be two slots, they're not worth it, and a lot of people just use like one variation type, because there's usually one that's considered optimal for most characters, which is a shame. And like there's a lot of like classic special moves that are locked behind being like variation only, like Rain's lightning. Very cool move, and the lightning changes colors based on his costume, but it's a fucking useless special move, and it takes two slots. But I digress. I think, well, the point being there is, I think they just need to fix it. Same for the customization, they just need to fix that. They need to stop the grind. I wouldn't even mind the grind if you could actually obtain everything, and also you weren't just getting alt skins. You get a skin, you get the colors with it, right? So yeah, Quiet and Bihan, sorry, they can absolutely share the same slot. They can be the same story. And yeah, I think it's important to give Bihan a role where he's presented as a hero because of the misconception that he's just an evil man, which is so unfair and untrue to his character. Like it was a whole Mandela effect, it felt, during the release of the 2021 movie, where Bihan's the main villain. And people are like, well, he's always been like that. Like, no, he has not. He really has not. And if you want to make the argument that being Lin Kuei means you're evil, then Kuai Liang, Cyrax, and Smoke would all apply to that because they've all done bad things. You know, like Sector 2. Sector's another character that was not inherently evil. If you look back, Midway Sector is never himself. He is always under the corruption of the cybernetics. It's only MK9 that suggests he likes what he does. He likes his work, which is fine, but they need to explore his father-son relationship, because bro is definitely getting manipulated or abused by his dad because it's a Nero. Again, a Nero should be more important. But yes, 17 minutes in, we gotta move on. Like that. That's the thing. I've thought about this a lot, and there's a lot of ideas and stuff. There's a lot of specific things that go into this. But yeah, we scroll down. We got Liu Kang, and I specified Fire God again, kind of obligatory because I don't like that role for Liu Kang. But with the premise given, he has to be that, obviously. And following that is Raiden as the Thunder God, not as immortal. Making Raiden immortal is an immediate way to kill his character, because that's not what he is. Last time I checked, Raiden is the Thunder God of Mortal Kombat. Right, he's not just some dude. Okay? So I'm really fucking fuming with MK11. MK12, sorry. And that Raiden's just a guy. He's Asian now, which is accurate for once. I appreciate that. I'm sure he'll just get his lightning powers back somehow anyway. But he needs to be a god. Because when 12, like Ed Boon was talking about like how for MK12 they're gonna change like so much of like the origins, which is really fucking annoying. Don't do that. But Raiden's obviously gonna be one of them because he's immortal. So he's just gonna be a dude who happens to be called Raiden. You know, like it's not the same guy. Honestly, that's my guess at least. But yeah, for this new timeline, this is another Raiden, and he's the Thunder God, right? And Liu Kang just leads this group with Raiden and the elemental gods, who I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, those are the guys who are in charge of dealing with these threats, and by extension, just really simple actions, because they're preventing major events that like lead to so many stuff. Like I gave Quan Chi as the example. Quan Chi frees Shinnok. That leads to the events of MK4. It also leads to the events of Deadly Alliance. It also leads to Mythology's events. Like, that's 3 games of stuff that they've solved, at least for now, until they come back, right? So yeah, Liu Kang and Raiden. Next is Reptile. Reptile, I mean, he's a wanted character, obviously. He was an MK11. I think it's dumb that people want him to be a mainstay. Like, no. But the reason I've got him here and on the base roster is the Terror's back. So that's another thing. Because Shao Kahn has stopped, none of the realms have been merged, right? And I feel like 12 is going to do the same thing because Shao Kahn's probably not present at all, or else they would have showed him in the trailer, right? Especially since Adenia seems to be back, which is cool, but I still don't think they're going to explore the realms. They're going to ignore the other ones. Like, Chaos Realm and Sado haven't been merged before, but we haven't seen them since Deception, so the game they debuted in. So, yeah. So Reptile. The Terror's back, of course, so there's Reptile Brawl. And finally, Reptile gets to be happy, you know, he has his round back, he has his race back. Well, that's just good for him. And you know, there's a trend with that with this roster. You have characters, you have a lot of hero characters, and you have a lot of characters who have been antagonists before, but they've always had a good goal. They've been doing something for good, like Reptile's thing. He just wants his people back, right? Like, he's a very sympathetic character. He's not a villain. He's an antagonist numerous times, but he's not evil. That's very unfair to the character. Another thing is bring back Deadly Alliance Reptile. That design, both the costume and the character model, is fucking perfect. My worry for MK12 is because like we already like Scorpions are already like palette swaps. They're gonna bring Rehuman Reptile back, which he's called Reptile. Make him a reptile. It is not hard to do. Next is Melina. Again, I wouldn't have on this roster just because I think making her a mainstay is a bad idea as catering to shares on Twitter. Because quite frankly, Melina, every single game she's in, her story is dog shit. It's absolutely dog shit. MKX is a good idea for her, for a story role for her, and like the ship with Tanya, like that's very adorable and whatnot. And also her MK2 origins, being from the Flesh Pits and being a clone of Katana. That's good stuff, and that's where it ends. That's where the positives end. She's got lots of potential though, and I think a new timeline obviously can help capitalize on that potential. I don't expect NRS to capitalize on it because it's NRS, but my idea would be Melina's back. Now it's kind of a retcon here, and it's doing retcon because, like I said, Liu Kang will just let the events go on. But in order to get Melina in the first place, this is like a necessary detail change, which quite frankly I don't think the NRS timeline even clarified anyway. So you could just say it's like in the NRS timeline, which was supposed to be a soft reboot, but lots of stuff was retconned anyway. So it's not ideal, but for this story, it's necessary. And that being Shang Tsung is just from a much earlier time period, which is also an idea of having Reborn. That he's from like fucking caveman times, you know, and his father's a caveman, and his mother was a outworlder, basically. Now, and that means he can get aligned with Shao Kahn much earlier on. But I mean, I don't even know if the older games clarify like the specific time period he's from, but he wasn't like this old, you know. But I absolutely see no issue with establishing Shang Tsung this early. And then Shao Kahn makes him a very early ally, gets Melina made. Because I don't think it's like too realistic to assume this, but I think it works just fine if we just say Shao Kahn's first target was Adenia, gets a clone of Katana or whatever, tries to infiltrate it, but gets along with Katana or something when trying to be disguised as her for the mission. They get along, she reveals Khan's plans or whatever, they tell the God group, and they work together to stop Shao Kahn. Another thing is, I don't know which invasion this would be, because there's a first one where Taven and Dagon stop it, and the thing is, I want the Taven and Dagon things stuff to continue, just because it happens quite early on in the timeline anyway. Um, and a good, again, it's a decent AU idea is that they would just never put to sleep, you know. But I think there's a lot of unexplored stuff because they've only been in one game. One very good conquest storyline for the pair. But we need more, I feel, and but it's especially tricky because we're not getting Armageddon as a story retelling because they can't have everyone on the roster, which fair enough, but don't ignore the character, especially not Dagon. Like Dagon's still around, dude. That leads to what's going on there because if we don't have Dagon, if we don't have that happen, we can't have the Red Dragon Clan, and I think the Red Dragon Clan is really underrated. I think that's a must-have clan in a franchise, and I think it should be way more important than it gets treated in modern games. It's it's the Black Dragon, but like times 100. So yeah, I guess you could say the first invasion wasn't interfered on because they knew the Sons of Argus could handle Shao Kahn, and he shows up a second time and he gets interrupted. Again, I think that's kind of unrealistic for Shao Kahn to just go after it again. My headcanon was always he conquered other realms and he became much stronger. And also, like, obviously the Sons of Argus weren't there as well, so that's vulnerable. So there's a lot of specifics there that I don't think are ideal, but in order to get Melina back, obviously, I think it's necessary. Again, it's kind of a scuffed premise. So you're going to have odd little backstory details, but I don't think it matters much. Like it still works. It's just not ideal. And next is Kung Lao. Again, a character I don't think should be a mainstay. He's just been on the roster for the past 3 games and hasn't done shit. But you know, with Liu Kang as the fire god, I think it's like he can take the spotlight at least there. So yeah, Kung Lao could be I don't know specific roles for a lot of the heroes, and I'll get to the more specific story because I've covered the crypt stuff and like the context for the villains being gone. But I'll get into the threat when we get to the bottom of this list. Number 8 here is Kentaro plus Goro. Again, use the Premier Skin system. Like they play differently in like the 3D era, you know. But they do share like the same skill set. Like the significant difference is Kentaro can breathe fire. I just make that a variation move. So you can have that on if you want, or if you want to be accurate to Goro, you don't have that. Or obviously you could still have it for Goro, you know, like that's totally fine. Because Shokan, they do fire stuff. Kentaro just has more of it, I guess. With a fire breathing. But yeah, overall, they can do the same stuff. They can do the same abilities. So I think it's totally fine to have a shared roster. Originally, I was going to have Kentaro be the pre-order bonus. Because that just makes sense to me. Very marketable character. You could argue having Goro there as well, like saying pre-order get both Kentaro and Goro. Like that's appealing. But then I think there's a lot of issues there when it comes to false marketing, because you'd have to clarify that actually it's one character, but it's one character in terms of moveset, but you get 2 characters that share the moveset, rather than you're getting 2 individual character slots. Like, I think that'd be a whole mess to sort of, which is why we need Motaro. Now, I don't care about the whole, well, we can't animate 4 legs. Like, fucking grow up. I think I'd be highly disappointed if in MK12 he isn't a cameo. Like, that's the most blatant character to have as a cameo. That's annoying because, like, other media, stuff like the X comics, you know, they still don't feature Sentinels. They don't feature him in the latest movies either. Like non-game material where you can include this species, they don't do it. And I think an easy fix is one that he figured out in 2006. Make them Minotaurs. I don't know the specific context for that. Again, assuming they can't animate 4 legs still in 2023. But even then, again, just do Minotaurs then. Like Armageddon Mataro's moveset is cool as fuck. Like being a centaur is much cooler because 4 legs, but being a minotaur, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, like that's still cool as fuck. And he had like this stance in Armageddon where he'd get on all fours. So you could still do stuff like that. Another idea I've seen, my friend CDR make is he has like a spiritual body where he grows the other legs or whatever for like specific animations or whatever like that. Something like along those lines. Like you know like his green energy blast from his tail. Like just do that to create a full body. I don't know. Again, there's lots of stuff you can explore with Musa. He's a very unique character. And I love the story he's exploring. Like, I want him and a Shokan here because another thing would be that they've made peace. Because, you know, oh, making peace, that's the whole story thing. Lee and Katana, Shokan the Centaurs. That could be a whole thing. Again, stuff that happens naturally. I don't have the idea of needing Liu Kang to have to warp time and reality so that these guys can get along. I'm like, no, they can get along naturally. It's just circumstances are different now. So yeah, if he were to be a Minotaur, I don't know the lore of that then. I guess they could, especially if Shao Kahn's not around as well for long, because that's like a whole thing for that beef that Shao Kahn was kind of just making them beef intentionally, like fight for my favor, you know. And the Minotaur lore came from like Shiva, I think, did a curse on the centaurs or some shit. Like really fucked up. I don't like that reason for it. I appreciate there is a reason in Armageddon, but I think it's a bad one. So I think you get another one without just retconning the centaurs into being Minotaurs. But I genuinely don't actually have a potential solution for that. But again, I'd rather take 2-legged Mataro than no Mataro. Like it's really insane. If you can't animate a horse, you've got to put your foot down and say he's a Minotaur now. Because you genuinely can't keep ignoring him. It's getting out of hand at this point. And yeah, he did a pre-order bonus. And again, probably like a more notable thing than Guitar, especially if they did get like 4 legs working, because like, holy shit, they did it. They finally did the unthinkable. They animated a horse. But yeah, 10, Nightwolf. I have no like specific story reason. I just think he's an important hero. He's like my favorite trilogy character, really, him and Raiden. In terms of story, that is, like, if I was being biased, I'd say Sector, but he's done fuck all with the story. So yeah, Sindel, Edenia's back, you have the Queen. You know, like that's quite simple, you know, focus on the Edenians. And again, because the Terror's back, you got K-Million. I chose a C-Million. C-Million's in this, but he's going to be DLC. I'll talk about more about him later. But K-Million, she has an actual story. So, yeah, base roster, she deserves it. Especially since she's always been, like, exclusive to Nintendo games. Which, honestly, because the Switch ports are very much inferior, they probably should still be doing that as compensation. But they won't. Which is a shame. But yeah, Chameleon, you know, on all versions, no platform exclusive or whatever. This is a cool character. So yeah. Next is Fujin. Fujin, I think Fujin's another character that should be around more often than not. Because he is the god of wind. Like a real big issue with both timelines, as a matter of fact, is he just goes missing and we never really get an answer. And you can't really answer that anyway, because he should be around to help with all threats, because he is the god of wind, Raiden's brother, and all that shit. But yeah, no, he just kind of hangs out in the Sky Temple, I guess. Bro's on his lunch break during MKX. I don't know. So I think he should be prominent again, especially since he's a really cool character anyway. You know, like I don't think anyone has an issue with Fujin being on the roster. Like, everyone loves Fujin. Cool-ass character. And one that has not been represented as much just because he came from MK4 and not the original trilogy. So yeah, like for example, the Midway timeline, he became the protected god of Earthrealm. And that was, like, canonical lore. Armageddon, like, like lets you know that yeah, he's Protector God of Earthrealm. But guess where he is in Deadly Alliance and Deception? I don't fucking know. Raiden is not a Protector God in Deadly Alliance. Like Fujin took that role because Raiden became an Elder God. He relinquishes his status to help out against the Deadly Alliance, but he doesn't just take back the role of Protector God. That still belongs to Fujin. Fujin's the Protector God throughout the entire 3D era, and Bro's just not there. I love the 3D era, but Fujin definitely should have been Deadly Alliance. Along with Kai, I'd replace Johnny, definitely. The next character to replace would be Kano, naturally, but Kano is actually kind of important to that game, because he establishes the fates of like Shiva and Matara. Bad lore, but it's establishing stuff. And also the Red Dragon stuff. So yeah, but he could be like an NPC ally of the Deadly Alliance anyway, really. So yeah. But it's about this game, and yeah, there's definitely room for fusion in the modern games. Next is Kai. Speaking of, again, Kai. But Liu Kang as the Fire God, especially, want to bring Kai into prominence. Especially when we've had like all the next gen characters return, except for Kai. And, well, Cobra and Kira, but the Black Dragon is also not prominent here in this game. I'll go into more of that later. But yeah, I think it's time for Kai to get some spotlight. He deserves it. Because yeah, Liu Kang clone, that's just a bad take. So yeah, next is Tanya. So of the Danian characters, I can't just chuck all the Danian characters into this game, at least not in base roster. And the DLC, I think has more important picks. But I really want Tanya. Just because she wasn't in MK11 for one, and also I just fucking love her. Like MKX Tanya, one of the very few cases of NetherRealm Studios drastically improving a midway timeline character. Like seriously, MKX Tanya is such a glow up compared to her whole previous lore that was just, oh well, I betray people. It doesn't even betray many people. She just joins the villains. Out of like self-preservation, aka Devora. So obviously, when she has no incentive to do that, and Adenia is still here, it'd be really interesting to explore her character. And also, Melina X Tanya, can we not ignore that, please? NetherRealm, your representation is already a shit. You know, it's already like awful. So can we at least get this back, please? I said MK11 going, well, Tanya is dead now. Like, no, Melina was supposed to be the dead one. Tanya should have been in MK11. So yeah, also Tanya just got a cool ass moveset, like a lot of cool abilities and stuff. Again, an MK4 character, I don't know if you want many complaints for returning. Also, 3 MK4 returns on the base roster. That's a pretty big deal, I feel. Because that has not happened. That has not happened at all, I don't think, except for Armageddon, obviously. Like, MKX is free, but Tanya's DLC. She was NPC originally. A whitewashed NPC. But anyway. Next in Natara, Faturnus is back, you know, so there's stuff to explore with her there. Also, returning 3D era character, we gotta get some reps there now. Like, I am very sick of it. Like, there are 31 3D era characters, plus MK4 characters, right? There's 33 original Trinity characters, and the comedians feel like 3D era ones anyway, because they keep getting ignored. So, like if for every Trinity character, they should really just have another 3D era character on the roster, in my opinion. Like, there should be much more balance here. I haven't like been that specific. I've been that nitpicky about it. Like I haven't picked out like an even amount, but I've got a lot of reps here. Deadly Alliance has all the reps except for Baraicho, who's a cameo character. Nothing against Baraicho. He's an MKX, and he's a character you can easily justify as an NPC. Actually, if you want to go the Elder God Baraicho thing, which we saw in Liu Kang's 11 ending, I don't think that's necessary, but that's the thing you could do. But yeah, I think Baraicho is a story character, and so him in an NPC role doesn't really bother me, because, you know, like, Like as much as I think his game is actually quite good in Deception especially. Obviously, it's not like the puking and fighting stuff. It's the reason why people don't take him as a credible character, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, we'll get to him. So yeah, then we got Lee May, another hero, represents like the positivity in our world. Of course, with the whole peace theme, it just makes sense to have her. If again, I don't have like a specific role for her, but yeah, I think Lee May's very cool. Next is Moloch Dramin. Again, a new Smoke parody. Ferrator. I mean, this is more similar to Ferrator because Moloch, big boy. It's Tor with a personality. And Dramin would just kind of like cling on to him. Of course, Dramin's a lot bigger. He's probably a tall guy, but you know, Moloch is fucking huge. Like he just like Dramin could just be clung onto his hunchback and then like jump in and stuff. So yeah, duo character, and also I went with this because I think duo character should be like a norm in MK. I mean, I guess this game's kind of making everyone a duo character with the cameos, but that's not the same. Basically, you got Moloch, you control Moloch, but then Dramin leaps into action. You could probably have like some special ability where Dramin just hops off and you can control him for a bit. Like there's so much variety there. Also, this is like the first like antagonist characters here. There's not many. And I'll get into why when I get to the characters at the bottom. Because actually, there's not sure a main threat, and I'll get into why for this game I went with that because obviously there's a lack of villains here, and I'll explain them. Next we have Shijinko. Shijinko should have just been a mainstay after his incredible Deception appearance. For my specific reason for being back is again focus on heroes, and also to set up the Onaga stuff because. Like, that's going to go under the radar for Fire God Liu Kang. I know the Raiden in the NRS line saw Vision Onaga being back, but he doesn't know about how that happened. Also, he never points it out, right? Like, that's another major issue with MK9's premise, is that he gets the visions of more major threats following Shao Kahn, and then he just kind of ignores them. Like, he would have known Shinnok would be back as well, if he remember those visions. But you're going to got a new Raiden here anyway, so that Damas Raiden, you know, can't even report that anyway, so yeah, he's not going to know about that thing. Like, specific details that, like, fly on the radar for him, he's not going to act upon, because that would just be very contrived, and again, you're going to want Onaga's return, and I think you want to keep the Kaidoga story the same. You don't want to just copy-paste the Conquest adventure, but you want that to be known in the story again. But perhaps you could tie in Onaga's return game with a port of Deception, for example. That's what they could do. Again, I'm proposing future game ideas to bring the villains back into stuff and put them in roles that feel suitable. But next is the all-around characters. Sadow's back, and I want all three of the reps because they've been very underrepresented, and I think they're all very cool characters that are overhated for dumb reasons. Daru and Darius especially. And of course, his Chaos Round's back. Havoc too, and Havoc's going to be quite important. And again, I'll get into why. Next is Triborg. And that includes Sector, Cyrix, and Smoke. And what I mean it literally includes the characters. It is not a separate character trying to be those characters. It is Triborg, the character, alongside these three characters. Like, Premier skins, essentially, they'll have unique dialogue, because they did it for the Ninja Turtles in Injustice. So I think this is possible. You can also chuck in Cyber Sub-Zero, I guess. But he's not on my mind, and I don't think it's necessary. Especially when a lot more effort's going to go into this Triborg, because the personalities of four characters. And yes, Triborg has his own personality. He's his own character. But I mean, Triborg's like kind of non-canon in MKX anyway. Like the reason for his creation is done. So we can just give him a new origins entirely. And this goes back to the Lin Kuei origins I said I'd expand on. That's about Nero, basically. And how, he might have had, I don't know, like you can establish from lore about how he tried to corrupt the clan because it used to be honorable and it wasn't, and it was again. And like he's trying to corrupt the clan and stuff, and then he's stopped. And basically, you could have Sector's mother be the Grand Master of the clan instead. Because I don't like the idea, even if I'm changing the lore of the Lin Kuei, I don't like the idea of just saying, oh, Sub-Zero's the Grand Master. Straight away, that's done. I think you want to put Sector's mother in as like an NPC character. Someone who probably, who treats the clan better, treats his son better. And then we get to see a new side of Sector as well. Smoke, I don't want to see Cyberize. I prefer him as a human. But Cyber Smoke's really cool for one. And my other justification is the three cyborgs will get freed of the slaving protocols in the story. And because that was always the problem with the cyborgs, is they never get freed except for Cyrax and Dead Alliance. And that was literally it. Whenever they get freed, they immediately die for Cyrax. The other two don't really get freed, except Sector's just kind of always been, I don't even know if in MK9 is even put under the slaving protocols. We don't know. It's very unclear. And the Smoke just never was until like Armageddon where to the Force of the Light, but we don't see him. We don't see that happen. We just know that at least, hey, he got a happy ending until MK9. But yeah, anyway, I'm not too fond of Cyber Smoke, but I think to get him on the roster, because I don't want to give him his own individual slot, we go with Cyber Smoke, but we restore him. So he gets to be himself. And in later games, you can de-cyberize him, and like Cyrax too. Another thing that I would like, because MK9 did this, and it's like actually one of the few cool things about that game, is how just have human alts. With a customization, that could be possible, but I think that's a bit much when we're already trying to fit 4 characters into one here. Like this is definitely like a lot of effort I'd go into a character, but it's possible. I think it's 100% doable. So yeah, onto the newcomers. A new Chaos Realmer. Havoc being the only Chaos Realm rep is kind of an issue. I don't know what the deal would be, but just any new Chaos Realm would help a lot. Same for a new Vampire. Perhaps you go with Natara's brother, something like that, like a sibling to Natara, or just a different character entirely. Again, I'm not really being specific about the ideas here, but I think these are the species that perhaps you'd want. The new crit protagonists, I'm talking about how it's Lucifer's Warden. So yeah, I think they'd be a cool playable character. And the new main villain, I put Zagat because I think it can just be an entire new character, but also I think Zagat fits my idea for this villain. So my idea is it's from Chaos Realm, and quite simply the reason why the main threat comes from Chaos Realm is because they don't like the peace that's being made here in this timeline. So they're trying to disrupt it. That's quite simply the main plot. There's side stuff going on, like the Lin Kuei issues with Triborg, which the context of Triborg, I forgot to mention this, is because Onero's rejected by the Lin Kuei clan for whatever reasons, being a crazy guy. He creates Triborg and he starts the cyber initiative that way. Instead of just having the cyber initiative not happen at all, because that would be a bit too strange, I feel. So there's like your side conflict, a lot of like the other like heroes don't have like a specific conflict going on. They just be put in this greater conflict with the Chaos Realm, invading the realms. So yeah, I think this works for this game specifically because I'm focused on peace and the heroes and stuff. This is for just one game, right? So the main threat is not like a crazy big deal. It's very simple. It's just Chaos Realms invading stuff. But I wanted to be more new villains because Shinnok's the only villain that you can really have show up, and in any context he works really. The other villains, like if you don't have them in like the specific retelling context, it kind of falls flat. Their return. I talk about how Nagas wouldn't work without the Shijinko lore, and also I mean, we've seen with Shang Tsung, you know. So I think we do actually more new main antagonists. Of course, there's a Chaos Realm guy, you know, maybe be main threat. Zaga, of course, headcanon is, he means the god of chaos, but headcanon is obviously it's Chaos Realm related. And that's why I think he fits, but you could also just have a new character entirely. But I think Zaga's really cool, and it'd be cool to have a Malibu comic character appear, especially when he's probably the most popular, because, yeah, he's fucking awesome. He's a cool motherfucker. I would be all for that. I also got a chaos. We got the whole theme of there being this group of gods, and Zaga is now the god that's kind of challenging the others. Similar to Shinnok, I suppose, in that regard. But obviously the difference being he just wants to cause chaos. Like, nothing personal, kid. We're just here to fuck shit up. Because that's the thing. You can create peace, but Chaos Realm is always going to be Chaos Realm. And that's it. Like that's the whole establishing that, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but with some you continue to force. And then at the end, you know, in like future games, you can establish like the absences. Some heroes that are still dealing with Chaos Realmers. They're busy with them. Now, I don't think we should vilify the new Chaos Realmer character, but especially Havoc, because Havoc is a neutral force. He just pushes his own agenda, which is create chaos. Again, nothing personal, kid. And I guess the same could apply for Zagat, but being a main villain, you can add some more sinister stuff there. So yeah, there's not much depth to it, but I think it works. You're going to need some sort of conflict in the game, even though it's focused on heroes. And I think Chaos Realmers just makes sense. It eases you into the franchise. The point of the story for this game would be to establish the differences between this and the previous timelines, show off a lot of returning faces, and set up future stuff. Because this game, you laid the groundwork for what's going to be a good timeline. Then you can focus on more important major threats showing up. My idea of how this will be handled in the story mode is that basically my one idea, and again, this one might be a bit much, this might be a bit out there, you know, ideas is we bring Conquest back, we combine Deception, Armageddon stars of Conquest. Deception as in you start and it's all very peaceful, you interact with characters and whatnot. Playing as various characters, I suppose. Again, a vague idea, you get to explore all the realms, which would include multiple ones like Zatara and Paternus. There's obviously other realms like Oshtek's realm, Nakanada, Arnyak, Tavora's realm. But we can put them to one side for now. We can put the Tyrants of Assassin and the NRS games to one side and then focus on the realms that people have been waiting for so long, you know. But yeah, like that would really help with the world building to have something like that. And again, just nostalgia for Deception, like a great game. The only problem there is because like especially expectation would be like, oh, we need big open world game with crazy graphics. That'd be the problem. Like I think if you put this idea, you present it in 2023, this is seen as too absurd. This is like too much, but you know, I think it'd be doable. Again, I think it'd be doable, but this is one that I think I'm reaching a bit in this suggestion. Especially when we get to the Chaos Realm invasion stuff, and it becomes like Armageddon, you know, an action RPG or whatever, beat 'em up game, and you're just fighting Chaos Realm forces. That can include various like monstrous like creature things rather than specific threats, you know. And then obviously it ends with like a final boss against Zaki or whoever the main villain will be. Go into Chaos Realm, go to Sado, get the allies from Sado or whatever. And yeah, I don't have a specific a specific roadmap for where you go between each round, but that's the general idea. Again, you could just have a cinematic story mode, I guess, but it would have to be a much shorter one is the thing. That's why I suggested start off with Deception Conquest, because there's peace. There's not violence at first, you know. That's why it has to be very different. Also, I don't like the cinematic story mode thing. At least not the chapter system. You know, if they are to bring it back, at least this game gives them time to figure out how to make it work next time, because it doesn't work right now. So yeah, that's my idea, alongside the crypt being Netherrealm focused. The Netherrealm might be another realm that you wouldn't visit in this one. I don't think it really plays into the main story. Moloch and Dramin, they're Netherrealm forces. Of course, it's mainly Chaos Realm forces, but they're like, okay, yeah, we'll help you commit chaos. They get convinced, hey, Oni, you don't have to destroy things just because you're Oni or whatever, and they help the heroes or whatever. They can be a sub-boss, I feel. You make them a sub-boss instead of the boss. Again, you could have them as NPCs, really, if we need a show on the roster. But in 2023, I really hate the idea of having your final boss be non-playable. I'm very sick of it, and it's still a thing in MK now. MKX is not really a problem because it's just corrupted Shinnok, which was a dumb idea anyway. And I get you need to make the boss fights harder, but they're so goofy and shittily made anyway. That you could just take a playable character and just buff the damage, or give some special unique abilities like Fire God Liu Kang. They're not playable outside his chapter in the story, and he plays very differently because he has special abilities that make him do more damage. He's actually hard to play as though because of the different properties that the lightning creates. It's very jarring, but still, you get the idea. That's the base roster. Now, Command Pack 1, you don't be story stuff, but it'll be more just characters. Filling out the roster, that's an important thing. We start off with Semelian. Like our Shang Tsung owned a card pack and then completely stole Chameleon's gimmick. This time Chameleon gets to return and get to beat the ninjas. I think it's very simple, and also the terror stuff. Chameleon is the freest character slot because not only is he a ninja character, he's very fucking cool, of course. But also, we haven't seen him since Armageddon, right? So he comes across as an obscure character because he hardly shows up. He's only been in 2 games. The Everyone is Here games, for that matter. And also just the whole gimmick, and the fact that you get to whenever he returns, you get to expand on his story. Fine, you get to answer some mysteries or keep the mysteries alive for a bit. I don't know. I just think he's a must-have. Really, he should have been MK11. So now I'm putting him in the slot Shang Tsung was in MK11, and yeah. Next is Baraka. Baraka, I don't think needs to be playable per se for this game, but I really want to keep the whole theme of the progression with Tarkata from MK11. I want it to keep going. I want to keep establishing that the Tarkatans are more than just monsters, and I want to keep that personality of Baraka going. Also, just a general fan favorite. You want to have some of them in your DLC pack to get people to buy it. Another one that's kind of a fan favorite is Striker. Just because we don't see him much again. I think it'd be cool to have him around. Simple as that, really. Next is Tassia. Just because Tremor got to be one, I think we should move on to having the other Special Forces NPCs get to be one. I think Tassia's got more going on than No Face, really. Tassia is actually a ninja, by the way. Ninja character. So, yeah, People would get behind her 100%. And also a Black Dragon character. Playable Black Dragon character. She can have dialogue about, and also bios. That's another thing. I want to expand on bios again. I think the cameo characters should also have bios, At least some justification for their appearances, because otherwise they're just there. If you have a bio, at least they're kind of a part of the story. Instead of just feeling like they're not actually there in the game. So yeah, you have the bio and you have dialogue. Again, a lot of storytelling methods MK has, and they just underuse them all. But yeah, it actually established what's going on with Black Giant. Kano imprisoned at some point, and now imply that Jarek's the leader now, or something like that. Set him up for the next game. We got to see the new Black Dragon. Kuro and Kuro, unfortunately, I couldn't find a place for him. But I think you can bring him back in the next one alongside. No Face can debut. I also bring Jarek back as a playable slot. Again, I already showed a lot of MK4 characters. I did want to show off a lot of Black Dragon ones because there's a lot of underused ones due to NRS's persistence on having Kano, even though he's boring as fuck. And then like MK11, he's with Aaron Black, not a Black Dragon character, and Cabal, who is a Black Dragon character in his backstory. Like that. That's how allergic they are to the other Black Dragon characters, which there are numerous. It's the character with the most characters, the clan with the most characters. Sorry. So yeah, I want some representation of that kind still. But yeah, next it's Serena. Again, I want a Netherrealm rep, like a demon rep. I had Asher here initially, but and I think Asher and Serena are like equally popular. Serena's actually been strangely represented less in this game, in his franchise. Sorry, because at least Asher's in Deception, Serena's in Tournament Edition, and Armageddon, and of course Mythologies. But again, only like fully playable in like one main game, and people like her. People have really gone behind her, which is cool. I think she's a cool character. And again, I guess you can explore like another consequence of Quan Chi being around is that the Brotherhood of Shadow never happened. So there's stuff going on there. Again, stuff to detail there. Again, world building on this new timeline, saying what's changed, what Serena's up to. So yeah, I should be good. And also being a demon character, you can her reveal that he's the final character. I think for like the compact, again, I like the idea of having split releases for the DLC. I know people complain when the compact in MK11 did it, but I think it's a very good way to handle DLC because it keeps you wanting something. It keeps the game alive. You do 2 compact packs, you have like 2 years of content there, almost 2 years. So yeah, I think it's a good system personally, but you keep the last one as a mystery, and then you reveal it at the end of Serena. Perhaps like an ending or something. You get like an image of Baphomet, and that aligns with like the silhouette they'd be showing the characters in the DLC, and it's like, oh shit, Baphomet. That's kind of hype, right? This new character, but also based on the Elder Demon from the Deadly Alliance concept stuff. That's Baphomet. And he'll be related to Lucifer. Well, not related by blood. I mean, I suppose that's an idea you could go with, but like an ally of Lucifer essentially. And it could be teasing that Lucifer is the main villain of the next game. That's what it sets up. Lucifer, he's been handling all his prisoners and whatnot, but he might want a bit more. Being the guy who has to deal with the Netherrealm. He might be a bit pissed off. I don't know the specifics for it. But of course, Lucifer, very villainous sounding character, And I think that sets up another new main villain that's been around in lore for a while, that being Lucifer. And you do that for Mortal Kombat 13. And then 14, you can do Onaga or whatever. Or you could do one, for that game, you can do one of the prisoners who have been released from Lucifer's dungeons as well, because Lucifer's been defeated and no one's been occupying. No one's been guarding, the prisoners, and some force helps them out, and a new villain perhaps. And so I've presented so many like future directions the franchise can go. From this game, there's not been like a true major threat, but there is a lot you can take from this for future games. Lastly, before the cameos, is Compact 2. And this is a split one. This can have like a side story thing that might be like a cinematic one, like a short one. I think the Lin Kuei stuff that I proposed with Tribal, that can also be one. So you can have one and then be like, hey, we'll have another one as future DLC if this is what you're into. So again, some more variety there. This will focus on the Special Forces. Again, explaining what they've been up to, and they've just been tracking the Red Dragon Clan. Again, the Red Dragon Clan. Right there, all 3 members. I think the Red Dragon are cool, and I think it's time to bring them back in the franchise. And if you're gonna do that, you have all 3 show up as playable. But at the same time, you want to kind of ease us into that. So I think having like previous mainstays like Sonya and Jax, and also a popular free character like Kenshi, that makes me want to buy the full DLC and then finally give the Red Dragon Clan a chance, because they're really fucking cool and they've handled well, like they were in the 3 games, because they weren't handled poorly. That's a major misconception. If NRS don't fuck it up, basically, like this hypothetical roster is if they handled it my way. This is how I'd handle it, and trust me, I can handle these guys well. And yeah, you end it on number 40. That's the end of the roster with Dagon, a demigod, and he can set up more future stuff like a Bathnet was. That being like searching for Taven, and then you get Taven back future games. Blaze can show up in a future game, you know. You set up stuff. You aren't setting up Armageddon per se, but you're setting up for these characters to get involved in stories that don't surround Armageddon, you know. So yeah, we started that, and now the cameos. I won't go into depth with them, like. But base roster, like logically, it'd probably be something in the story. Perhaps like they show up in the proposed conquest mode in some way. So Johnny Cage, like, we can give him a break. He's not actually playable in every game, honestly. But he's a fine person to stick around as an NPC. Again, Jade and Rain as the Edenians. I want to ask Rain like bring in like the general's son-in-law and how he's like still working for his dad because Khan never really successfully invaded. So, you know, like peaceful realm, you know, and explore Mac again, kind of an Edenian character there. You can explore what he's doing. Again, you give them bios, just say what they're up to, like they're just chilling. Again, it's much more believable with my premise to make these cameo characters work because it's quite a peaceful time for the characters at the moment. Shiva, get the other Shokan in here. Again, I didn't make a playable because she was in MK11. I was trying to focus on Goro and Kentaro. Also, Goro would still, like, his family would still be rulers because nothing fucks them over in this timeline. Next is Meat and Mocap. You know, the kind of joke characters, I which I think is unfair because of specific lore. Meat doesn't even feel like a joke character to me after Armageddon. Like, genuine, like a proper character. Mocap, too. Like, so they'd just be fun to have as cameos anyway. And yeah, so over them. Frost, I have all the combat kids here actually, and because I really think that the true best thing that come from the NRS games is the combat kids. You have to be handled perfectly or anything, but I think they should like still be around. But this like game, there's not really the space on the roster for them all. And I still have Kai. I still show Kai because Kai's one that hasn't like returned yet of the hero ones. Of course, you have Cobra and Kira, who people would headcanon as the new gen characters, and this is important for the context of what time period we're in. And it's the same as MK11, except now we're looking at what's changed since the reset. You know, how has Liu Kang's actually benefited the timeline, and you see that he's actually had a positive impact. Stuff hasn't changed for the sake of change. The Browns are, at least currently, in a better place because of how he handled the villains. So that's how you get the next gen characters. All right, Joe. I've already talked about him. Scarlet, playable in MKLM, but I want to keep her around. Again, like established that she's like I don't know. Again, you have the Flash bit stuff. Another crucial reason to bring her back is for like me, Scarlet, the other construct characters. I know, like with Melina, you know, they'd be sided with Melina, I guess. Who's sided with the Edenians, because stop that dumb rivalry, please. Next is Devora. I like Devora, and I think this would be a significant change for a character because Arnyek's back, so she doesn't have to be this like survivalist character. But Arnyek's quite minor, and always focusing on so many other realms. But you'd want her here to give her a bio saying that Arnyek's back and she's chilling. But at the moment, I don't think people would welcome Devora returning, even if she's no longer just an asshole who kills your favorite character. I think Devora deserves a break. And you got the combat kids. Cetrion, Elder Goddess in this timeline. She could show up just as like her and kill himself. Or like those like hologram-esque spirits to help out. something like that. And there you get your MK11 reps, you know, because we're repping everything from each game. MK11 is quite hard because you have the time characters and Elder Goddess and then Collector. Collector's also here, I'll get to him. And then you have the Elemental Gods because they're also part of this God group, but it would just be a bit much to establish more in this game. They wouldn't just be called Fire, Water, Earth God, especially when Fire God Liu Kang is a thing. They'd have their own names. You could tie them to like how Raisin and Fusion are based off actual mythology god names, or just come up with something quirky like Call with the War God Splash, you know. And number 20 here is the Combatant, which is this like robot looking Shokan guy. Again, could be a sub boss, could be an enemy in the Conquest. And it'd just be a tie-in to Sagat's origins. And also, since Goro's on the roster, it wouldn't be like random. You could make Goro like a major player in helping the heroes. Because it's Goro. Strong fucking guy. Of course, if it's not Sagat, the main villain, it's some other original. You could have, say, General Kotal or whatever. I mean, he wouldn't even be a general. That's why I excluded Kotal. Because there's not much of a place for him. It's quite weird because Kotal Khan, you can't do that without the specific circumstance of the NRS timeline because he needs to take over after Shao Kahn, right? So if you haven't shown before, then he's General Kotal, right? And it'd just be weird to change his name like that, just call him Kotal, I guess. And also, I think we need a break from him entirely. But like Devore, you could definitely have him be a cameo, I think, and then just establish what's changed with him. But I have no idea for what to even do with him. So I think it'd be one you re-establish at a later date. But you could definitely do that here too. I just have nothing in mind for him. But yeah, you could definitely like you can trade a few of these, you know, because they're cameos. But yeah, Combat Pack 1, Collector, again, Savage Knocknada's back. And also, it would just be quite charming. Collector could also be in the crypt, because I think he should be like the crypt guy. He should be a mainstay in the sense that he shows up in the crypt all the time. Basically, the Resident Evil merchant. Like, I thought that was a cool role for him, even if like his actual shop's bullshit in MK11. And it doesn't work on Switch because it just says description of item. It doesn't actually provide a description. It just shows you the text that's supposed to be the description. It just says description of the item. MK11's crypt is broke on Switch. It's so funny. But yeah, I'd welcome it back. It'd be a bit weird though because it's focused on like a specific location in the Netherrealm. If we did do that though. So maybe not for this game, but yeah, I actually Collector went back. Again, he's like my most cameo character to ever exist in a playable role. I don't want to be forgotten about because he's kind of cool, but there's not much justification for making him playable again. So definitely another NPC character. And also, I want to be the first DLC cameo because, you know, like, hey, thanks for collecting. You know, you're collecting the DLC. That'd be funny. Carbrak, again, you want to establish more characters. Ties in with Baraka there, and Atakan. Cabal ties into Striker. Bring back the cop law. And then No Face and Trem to go to Black Dragon stuff. So yeah. And then Combat Pack 2, you have Vera around. With Jax. And then it's kind of a continuation with the Combat Pack 1 things. It probably isn't organised the best here, kind of reaching here. But, you know, Chucky Kia, Jataka, and also Ashra at the time with Serena. And also Jarek, because you want to have a Black Dragon character, connects with both the Special Forces and the Red Dragon. But yeah, you can trade those for whatever, really. But I do have my reasoning for all of them. But of course, the more important thing is the playable characters. And I'm quite happy with this. Again, I've discussed how some things can be changed, you know. But overall, I think this is a solid idea. Well, it's definitely not happening. This is not a prediction by any means. But yes, I think this concept for the new timeline, now if I got Liu Kang, can work. It's not one I think is worth pursuing, but I think it can work. But I don't think it will work in actuality. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.